Mention to someone that you're thinking of visiting Belarus and you're likely to encounter a loud screeching sound, followed by a tirade of abuse, followed by further screeching until your brains are fried out so badly that you don't even want to live on this planet anymore. And the reason people react that way is that Belarus is not considered a country worth visiting. In fact, it's number 2 in the least visited countries in Europe, second only to Moldova. But recently they've relaxed visa restrictions into getting to Belarus, and you can actually spend 5 days in Belarus as long as you fly in and out of Minsk. So I took advantage of this new scheme and decided to go and check out Belarus for myself. And I've got to say, I liked what I saw. So here are 5 things that I really liked about my time in Belarus and why I think it is a country worth visiting. Belarus is remarkably safe. Now, my first impression when I got to Belarus was that things felt very, very safe, quite a lot safer than other countries I'd been to, for instance, in Western Europe. And I suppose this is largely due to President Alexander Lukashenka, who since 1994 has ruled Belarus with an iron fist. So you do tend to see tanks and police and military on the streets, but a lot of the military guys just look really young and harmless anyway. Actually, some of them look really, really young, like you wonder whether they should be allowed to drive a tank. And actually, if you saw that YouTube video last year of a tank crashing, that was in Belarus. Belarusians are great drinkers. According to the World Health Organization, Belarus tops the charts for litres of pure alcohol consumed at 17.5 per capita. Now those are impressive statistics indeed. And while these statistics may indicate depression and helplessness, they can also indicate, hey, maybe Belarusians are just sort of fun party animal types who love a good drink. Belarus is not a sex holiday destination. Now Belarus somehow has got this unfortunate reputation of being a sex holiday destination. And I think the reason people think that is because Belarus has got funny names for some of their cities like Brest and Minsk, which sounds a bit like Minsk. And of course there's Slutsk as well. But the good news is there's nothing to worry about on that front. In fact, when I arrived in Minsk, I hopped in a taxi and the driver looked at me and he said, "So why have you come to Belarus? Sex holiday, da?" I'm just joking. And the fact that the taxi driver said I'm just joking kind of proves to me that Belarus is not a sex holiday destination. President Lukashenka has a great sense of humour. Now, a lot of people like to criticize the President Alexander Lukashenka, but personally I wouldn't dare. And I think something that people miss about President Lukashenka is that he's got a great sense of humour. So for instance, I was drinking with this Belarusian girl who worked for the government, and she was complaining to me about how the president one day just changed the main street in Minsk, Skarina Avenue. He just changed it to Independence Avenue, but like he doesn't run it by everyone. So one morning you wake up and your main street has a different name. And I just think that's just really kind of funny. And he also employs more subtle humour too. So for instance, he introduced this thing called the social parasite law. And the social parasite law is kind of how it sounds. If you're unemployed, you're a social parasite and you get this really big fine that you can barely pay. Now this caused a lot of protest in Belarus, but in 2018, Lukashenka finally lifted the social parasite law and he was like, relax, it was just a joke, calm down. And I think people just sort of didn't understand that it was a joke. I guess especially the police who beat the shit out of the protesters every day for like 3 years or whatever. Belarusians have a great sense of hospitality. So for instance, one night I had a bit to drink and I was walking at 1 a.m. from the last metro stop, and I had to do this 45-minute walk back to my hostel, which was in the outer suburbs of Minsk. And I was approached by this woman who was wearing a jacket and she looked in her 40s and she asks me, "Where are you from?" So I tell her I'm from Australia and she looks really shocked and she's like, "Australia? Here? Why? Why?" So anyway, she follows me down the main street for another 10 minutes and she keeps saying, "My house, no pay, no pay." And I keep saying, I'm fine, thank you. And I actually started laughing because I found the whole thing ridiculous. And finally at the next street corner, she grabs me by both of my shoulders and she says, "You, me, my house, no pay." And I say in the only Russian that I know, "Niet spasiba," like no, thank you. And finally she's just sick of my stubbornness and she walks away and she's like, "Bye-bye," and she storms off. And looking back, I feel kind of bad that I was such a bad guest and she was just trying to be hospitable. So there you go, there's 5 things that I really liked about my time in Belarus, and I'm hoping that this video doesn't get me barred from entering Belarus in the future, because I'd really like to experience that wonderful Belarusian hospitality properly. Let me know in the comments if you've been to Belarus or if you're thinking of going to Belarus, and if you're Belarusian, let me know in the comments whether I offended you or not. As always, I've been Pete Vondelpark, subscribe and thanks for watching.